Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for waiting as we concluded the gameplay in the lower bracket. It's now time for us to welcome the man that's just beaten Kilson. It's Base out onto the stage. He came in with a huge victory and keeps his dreams alive in the tournament. Potentially a dark horse to keep your eye on. Vengeurr is also here, hoping to carry on with the high-flying fragging capabilities that we know and love from the man. Bopping his way back out to the stage there, looking smug, looking ready for some gameplay. Flea, both of these boys, very conflicting play styles, as I feel like we have to say anytime Base is on the stage, because who else plays like him?
I mean, Base is bar none the most passive and defensive player in the entire game, right? He's obviously got the combat skills to go full-on aggro, but more often than not, he just sticks to his own part of the map and he plays a very reactionary gameplay where he waits for the other player to make the mistakes while he just comfortably just runs his own routes, and he plays a very passive defensive play.
And I mean, the reality is, we're far in this bracket now. We are reaching the final stages of the tournament. I believe, right, this should be a 2 out of 3 match, best of 3, which does take us a little bit back from where we were earlier today, where we've been best of 5 territory for a good while. But that does mean this is the last match that will be that, and it kind of almost means like the extra kind of safety net, I suppose, of the extra map, that's gone. Got to play 100%, there's no room for error. Something Vengeurr has been saying all day, although he's confident and he doesn't feel the pressure that he used to feel. He kind of feels pretty okay. He's been on a decent amount of lands from this point, but the reality is, you can't make a single mistake anymore. Base will punish a mistake and then some, especially on the right map where he is more than happy to win a map on like 1 frag, maybe 2 at a push. 1 mistake can cost you a frag, that mistake can cost you the map against a player like him.
And that's something that I'm personally a little worried about when it comes to Vengeurr, because his playstyle is of course the complete opposite of Base. He goes for these really flashy, aggressive moves, reflecting a very flamboyant playstyle, really putting himself out there, and I do fear that if he messes up doing so, Base is mercilessly going to capitalize off of that.
Yeah, well, that's the risk you run, right? Is obviously going up against Base, he lives and breathes the counter to that. He's going to be able to basically just be a spider waiting in his web to grab him and cover him in web, and that's never good for anyone.
No.
I don't know, there are probably some people out there that wouldn't mind, but I'm certainly not one of them. The map after this, we have to remember that whoever wins this will then go up in the lower bracket final to face off against Razy. So it's the kind of like layers upon layers. This is already a pretty high stakes matchup with some of the absolute best players in the world. And then for this, it's Razy. And then after that, it's Rafa, if you can make it that far. Like, this is the very top of the pyramid right here.
It gets harder and harder as it goes on. Let's have a look at the veto though and see which champions are going to be in play.
Starting things off with Blood Run, we've got the Nyx being banned. Base does not want to face the slippery snake with that invisibility ghost walk up her sleeve. And so we will be seeing BJ versus the Doomslayer. Doom, of course, a very common pick on this map because that double jump just gives you so much mobility around that center area and the heavy.
We can see Awoken up next, and it's quite fitting how many times we watch Base and Vengeurr go head-to-head. You're almost guaranteed to see a Blood Run. You're almost guaranteed to see an Awoken Blood Run and Base, 2 peas in a pod. Awoken Vengeurr, 2 peas in a pod. They have actually been able to take each other's best maps off of each other in a competitive setting. I believe, if I recall, it was at the Stage 1 finals where it was a very similar kind of light. But it's just something you can always grow to expect. And they've clashed heads quite regularly with kind of varying levels of results. Blood Covenant as the decider. Athena coming out to play again. She's been a really popular pick today. And I mean, the proof is in the pudding with how much success she brings to the table. The picks other than that though, the Awoken, Galena, totally makes sense. And in fact, actually every single pick that we can see here, you can understand the decision made behind it. Base, if he wants to play slow and reserved, he's got the BJ. If he can get that lead, I mean, the dual wield never hurt anyone.
Oh yeah, and looping back around to their match history, I believe that Base actually beat Vengeurr back at Quake at LAN a few months ago, and ever since it has been Vengeurr that has been reigning supreme. They've played, I believe, 3 times since, back in Stage 1, but also during the online stages of the Quake Pro League, and it was Vengeurr that came out on top every single time. So especially in recent history, it was definitely Vengeurr proving himself to be the better player of the two.
Right, well, I'm going to have to push you for it quickly before we get into this matchup. Vengeurr or Base, Flea, what scoreline and who's taking it?
I'm going to say 2-1 to Vengeurr. I think that he's got what it takes to win, but on the other hand, you know, Base, you can't rule him out ever. His LAN performances have been overall relatively disappointing compared to what he's capable of online, but this is shaping up to maybe be one of his best tournaments yet when it comes to Quake Champions. So I really do think that he can make some magic happen as well.
It is funny you should mention how he hasn't had an amazing LAN record for Pro League recently. I think this tournament in particular for sure is like that kind of next step above that, just coming off the back of defeating Kilson, and that was a pretty close venture as well. Anyone that watched the side stream or anyone behind the scenes that was watching it in our area, it's quite similar, and it's a great result for him, and there's a lot of momentum actually riding off taking out someone who has won one of the biggest Quake Champions tournaments in the world in recent history too. Like, that was a pretty recent tournament that Kilson was able to win, and Base has been able to take him out. But I do agree with you, Flea. I think Vengeurr just historically has a better track record against Base. I think Vengeurr is really feeling the heat today, and he's ready, I like to think. But a 2-1 is more than likely. I do not think a 2-0 will come through.
No. I mean, it is interesting, right? Because obviously you glance at it and you're like, wow, well, we've seen so much of Vengeurr over the course of the tournament, especially in the A stream here. So many of his games have been played. He's been looking great, so flamboyant throughout all of it. But for Base, he's been on a bit of a slog, hasn't he, really? Fighting his way tooth and nail through that lower bracket. But he's been really doing a good job. The fact he's now got to this position, and for the first time, it felt like we saw him actually walk out back with that swagger in his step. Because he's got a lot of personality, but finally, this event, we've got to see it again.
Oh yeah, I'm happy to see that come into fruition, and as you said, Base has been doing quite well in the lower bracket, dropped down relatively quickly, but he has since managed to take down Chain. And Chain, as you saw, he took out Cooler. He had one of the best runs of his Quake lifetime, and now he managed to come out on top of Kilson, one of the absolute best in the world, ranked 1 in EU by a pretty significant margin, so clearly the man's onto something.
Yeah, he has been taking seeds left, right, and center throughout his progression in that lower bracket. Ryan, I know you've gone for Vengeurr as the pick here, but do you feel like there's an opportunity for Base to come through? Obviously, we know his playstyle sometimes can really come in clutch.
I mean, of course. At this stage, this late in the bracket, it's very hard to make a solid prediction. The only solid prediction is that Rafa could probably win this tournament. That's the only piece of solid information we have at the moment. But it's just all about how they've been playing this weekend. The fact that Base, on a really good day, and it has been proven by results, he can take out some real killers because he's right up there among the best of them. So if he defeated Vengeurr, would it be a shocker? Probably not. I'm sure there are people out there that think we're completely wrong. They think, oh, I think a 2-0 for Base. And Base has a lot of fans and a lot of people that believe in him. So, you know, he's definitely not going to be in a losing corner in that respect. It depends on where you come from and the kind of stuff that you watch. Base has a lot of people that think he can get it done. Just personally think that Vengeurr has that edge. And I think it's enough of an edge to give him a 2-1.
It's interesting, right? Because that's the thing. I even said I thought like Base could potentially be a dark horse for this whole tournament, and it seems like maybe there's an opportunity for that, but we'll have to see based off the result here today. He's going up against Vengeurr. It's not a best of 5. It is going to be a best of 3 to see who moves on to play Razy in the lower bracket final. A lot of stock riding on this. It should be an exhilarating game. And I really cannot wait to get into this one. We're mere seconds away now.
I agree with what you said, though. A lot of people out there have thought there is a dark horse element of Base in this tournament. He has proven that with how late and deep into this stacked bracket he's been able to fight his way in. We're going to be checking out Vengeurr's perspective first, going in with the Doomslayer. And there is going to be somewhat of a small exchange at the beginning, but neither player interested in fighting just yet. Haven't got the weapons, haven't got the resources to fight.
Yeah, and of course, this is a map that I think a lot of Base fans are going to be happy to see come out at the very start of the series. It is Blood Run, the bread and butter of many a Russian player, and instantly out of nowhere, the moment I say it, the deadly Tribolt coming through Base, eating so much damage. You have to remember, right? The Tribolt, if it all hits, it does more damage than a direct rocket, so that's nothing to smirk at as Vengeurr takes the early lead.
But it's a perfect way to start. You look at what the consequences are on Vengeurr. If he wants to go for a rocket jump, he certainly can. Unfortunately, Doesn't quite get the height, but still a bit scary for Base. Base is going to pop the dual wield. Understandably, we're going to pop it not for the damage, but just to scare him away. We need some sort of control back after an early frag that's conceded that early on. You just need something to get it back.
Yeah, and that was a good way of Base to do it. He capitalized instantly off that mistake that Vengeurr made. The messed up rocket jump gave his opponent a quick path to the heavy, where he set up, popped the dual wield, and just kept Vengeurr at Base. And right now, it's the Russian player that has the stack advantage, but that rail, that's a good equalizer. Heavy is up, Base has to rocket jump up it. Vengeurr heard that, pushes out to do some damage, but takes quite a bit in return as well.
Vengeurr's going to be quite patient in the situation, and as long as he sits up here, he has quite a lot of information as to where Base might be. Obviously, it comes down to how much noise Base wants to make at the end of the day. Happy to go in and take that Mega. As long as Vengeurr can control the heavy, you know, there's always that play that someone goes for the heavy, a fight breaks out, and that fight can so often result in a crazy fast frag being gone. Doesn't quite get the rail. Vengeurr, he has to show a lot of respect here. It's not just the rail, but it's the tri-bolt that can melt you down. We did see that in the first frag of the series, actually. But until Vengeurr manages to stack himself back up a little bit, he's got to show a lot of respect to Base, and he's doing that so far.
Yeah, and that's a very common kind of playstyle you see on this map, where the player that is out of control has got a lot of these tight corridors and walkways to use as choke points and defend himself against the opponent. Right now we're seeing that Vengeurr has managed to hit that base stack again, 100-100, and now he's just looking for an opening. He's waiting for an opportunity to first get the timing. That's what he's doing right now, listening in. He's gonna hear Base pick that up. Now he's hoping to land maybe a rail, some good rocket damage. LG, that can help too, and slowly start making his way back into it, but Base instantly cracking down on that uprising with a good rail. And now for Vengeurr, back to the drawing board, has to wait a little bit before he can make another move.
He's going to be in a tricky position here, and this is often a location where if you're out of control, that power-up room is quite an attractive spot to retreat to. But right now, Vengeurr playing the patient man's game, and he can afford to do that. He has got one frag. We can never forget, this is Blood Run we're talking about. You may think it's a tiny lead, but on a map like this, which can be so defensive, one frag can be worth a million, but it looks like now Vengeurr, he's just pretty comfortable playing this extreme ranged game. And he is going to have that kind of slight mobility edge versus Base here, purely on the fact that Base has got access to BJ. That was a really important rail, because now Base is quite weak, and it's immediately had to make him somewhat second guess where he wants to go. You know, he can't use that teleport anymore, cannot risk a fight, but that's some really good LG at the very least. And some tri-bolt, going to tickle just a little bit, but it's going to give the information. He's running towards the right. Vengeurr, can he shut this down? Can he nullify the effect of this Mega? But with the spawn being so similar to Heavy, Base has taken some damage, but he has to really try and push himself out. He's going to take that damage happily to guarantee that Mega, and now he's actually trying to lay some pressure on this Heavy. He takes the damage, knowing he will. The rail.
I love how you can instantly see the change in Vengeurr's behavior. The moment he got control back, he moved away from those little back alleys and the top rooms, dead in the center of the map, positioning himself where it all happens, where he can control all the movement of his opponent. Vengeurr now waiting below. He knows that Base is right up there. Mega's about to spawn. Base actually dropped down for it. Vengeurr doesn't have the better stack of the two. This is gonna be close. Tri-bolt again helping the Italian out massively. He's just gonna sit in the blood pool for a while and at least get himself above that railable threshold. Out comes Base, risky rocket jump, but the rail saves him with 8 points of health left.
Yeah, that was quite a clinch exchange, to be honest with you. It could have gone either way, 100%. Base just hitting that clutch rail at the last second. Vengeurr did have to spend a little bit of time there on the pure basis of he was railable, and you can't risk it. Like, in theory, maybe he could have gone out there a bit earlier. Base was weak on the way to Heavy, but that's like a 1 in a million chance. You had to know exactly what was happening after you died to have the hindsight to go back before.
And there we saw some of that signature Base passive play. Did a whole lot of damage to Vengeurr, and he knew it too, but instead of going up the bounce pad to try and chain him down and risk taking a bad rocket in the face, he instead just let him go. And he said, you know what, I'm just gonna loop back around, get back to control of the major items. I know that there's very little resources for you to work with, so I'm just going to content myself with continuously denying every single armor on the map.
But from this point, the stack advantage does go to Base, and Base Once more, looking for the slightly unorthodox play that the Heavy's just about to spawn. If Vengeurr is up there trying to get himself in position, you'd hear a rocket and you maybe think, okay, rocket jump to Heavy, got it. But there are different areas you can go. Base chose to go where Vengeurr might have been. He wasn't at the time, but it doesn't really matter so much right now because the stack advantage still belongs to Base significantly. The dual wield and play, really important rail, mostly just to slow down Base momentum. Base cannot push forward in that situation. In the middle of his jump, his movement just gets stopped, and that's it. Vengeurr can live to fight another. At the end.
Yep. Right now, Base setting up a trap. He knows that he's outstacking Vengeurr. He knows that Heavy is there. There we go. Smile G coming out. Vengeurr, this is a risky peek. He decides against it. He knows the tribal. He knows how deadly it is. Base doesn't want to sit around and wait any longer. He's going to rush in with a rocket jump. Lands one rail. Vengeurr is going to retreat. Base gets the right read. Can he find him?
And read too. I mean, he knows the Heavy's in play too. Yeah. Do we take the Heavy now? Why would I bother if I know Vengeurr's in there? I could do damage, then retreat the Heavy, 0% chance. Steal full control back, a slight delay just to keep him running that circuit if he wants to, but Vengeurr, he's in a terrible position now. He's really weak and he has gone to the health bubbles. The rocket, like half a second too early,
yeah,
really.
A bit of a misfire right there, but now Base, he is in such commanding control right now, but you need more than just control, you need frags. And there's always a risk in playing this slow of a style, because even if you can continuously get all the major items on the map and you keep your opponent low, one exchange, a rocket, a rail, a bad engagement, it can turn things around instantly, and Base wants to get a lead before that happens.
But it is in turn why Base is so control heavy, that when he is satisfied to play by one frag or a small amount, that holding a huge amount of control is the #1 way of making sure that these sporadic last-minute frags to even the odds just don't happen.
Yep.
Just to avoid that situation entirely.
Absolutely.
And he trade rails, both railable flee. Oh, they both miss. Who's going to be quicker on the draw? Vengeurr this time. He's going to get the Heavy, but he is weak. Thankfully to the Mega. He was able to bypass just for a couple of seconds. There was some machine gun fire coming out of there with a very weak
quick little rocket jump, doesn't want to waste a moment of time. Oh, there's some big rockets coming at his face, but Vengeurr caught in an awful position, and Base with 2 minutes left on the clock. That was a very quick turnaround. From being one frag behind to being one in the lead on a map like Blood Run. Impressive plays from the Russian.
But now we have to look at the clock. Base, he has one frag lead, just over a minute and a half left to go, and he's in a great position with his stack. He's got the center of the map controlled. As that rocket jump just forces Vengeurr, he has no choice but to be as crazy defensive as he can. He needs to get one more frag, but Base doesn't make that easy for you. At this stage, what's the play going to be? Keeps the control, makes total sense. He's going to shut away the Mega at the same time, which is going to make things even worse for Vengeurr. Base doesn't give you an angle, he doesn't make comebacks that manageable, really. And it's the strength of his style. Yep. He takes away as many resources as possible to deny comebacks.
The one benefit, the one thing that Vengeurr has got going for him still is his champion pick. He has a lot more mobility, but here we go, the LG on LG. Decent amount of damage, that's definitely a win for Vengeurr, but now he has a minute, less than a minute left. Will get himself the Heavy Mega to boot as well, surely in just a few seconds, although I don't think he's got the exact timing on it. He's got to start leaving up the major items sooner rather than later.
But I love this positioning by Base because you get so much information here.
Yeah, he hears the teleporter being used. There we go, see Vengeurr making use of that mobility that I mentioned, getting around from the other side, trying to catch Base off guard. Base still just waiting, listening out for the audio cues.
At this point, just ignoring the pickups too. Yep. You know, it's all about stick your ear to the ground, listen out for it. We have 20 seconds left. Vengeurr does clock him, but that defensive rail, important start. Rocket jump comes out and he can hear the Heavy. But Vengeurr, he's got to find him, and he has to find him right now. But in this position, you go right, Base can just run left, you know, vice versa. This is a perfect position and a great place to sit at the last second. The classic Base style. Vengeurr, he has 2 seconds and not quite.
Base even gets one for good measure. I really feel like it was a very strange pick. Maybe Vengeurr just didn't have the railgun yet, but when he showed up at Mega and Base was about to go to a teleporter, he landed like 2 machine gun bullets on him. That's the situation where you need to use that railgun. He really needed to prioritize those long distance 90 damage picks in order to get back into the fight, but was unable to as Base set up a defensive wall and just ran down the clock.
But we saw even in these replays, the first frag in like about 30 seconds, and then later in the clock, only a few frags, and it was like 7.5 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just to really put into perspective how few and far between these frags can tend to go. It was well played by Base. He had plenty of stack at the end there too, and that was just overall. It's just another Base Blood Run map. It's why it's his strongest map. It's why his name is attached to that map in the Quake Pro League. And he really is the best in the business on it.
Solid accuracy too, 54% railgun. That's definitely what helped him keep his opponent's stack low and manageable to secure himself a very good rotation of the major items and a lot of control for a major part of the map.
But that's one map. Remember, everyone watching so far, we are in our best of 3 territory. This is our final best of 3, and whoever wins this match moves on into the lower bracket finals to face off against Maestro Razy. And that's going to be a best of 5. This means that Vengeurr is in quite a scary position. Yep. I know that he is one of the players, like many at this level of play, you play it one map at a time. You ignore what's at stake. You ignore how many maps you do or don't have left.
Yep.
But this late in the tournament, it can be hard not to do that, because there's just so much riding on this situation.
Absolutely, and as we mentioned before, this is the first time since Quake Champions was released, basically, that Vengeurr has made it into the top 4 of a major LAN. So this is already a victory for him. I still remember well, it only happened just now, but Vengeurr, when he beat his opponent and he made his way into that final 4, he walked out of the room backstage and he walked past me after he beat Saigib and he looked at me and he said, top 4. One thing he said when he walked past to go and submit the score. And indeed, this is his first time entering the 4 best players of the LAN as we jump into map 2, which will be Awoken.
But this is quite a milestone for him.
Yeah.
But when you reach this part of a tournament, you're never truly going to be satisfied because you know you have the skills to go all the way. You wouldn't be this late in a bracket if you weren't. Base is another example of that. He is such a talented player, and he's proven that at the Stage 2 finals. But here comes the Pika, being as annoying as possible, the rocket in hand. It did cost the final rocket, though. He has nothing left. He's only got a starting machine gun. The Pika serving its purpose of just starving the ammo. Let me eat it up, bro.
Hugging the wall, doesn't even want to go and pick up the hourglass, is just looking to give as little of an angle to his opponent as possible. Will get himself some more rockets, do some good damage with it too. Applying the cooler technique of dodging. Best dodge is no dodge at all. And Vengeurr overestimates his job, but can he clean it up? The rocket!
Wow!
Base!
The fact that Base managed to turn that into a trade is insanity.
That was incredible. That should have 100% been Vengeurr's frag alone. But Base somehow, with the longer distance rockets, just tying things up 1-to-1. And right now, Vengeurr getting the better spawn. He's got control. Base is waiting for a rail.
Vengeurr uses the missed rail as an opportunity to pop a free Pika. But yeah, from that point, information, I'm not quite comfortable with this anymore. He could be anywhere. Let's get rid of it.
I also feel like it was a bit of a misplay. Base left, and he tried to do Peaker damage, and it allowed Base to just loop back around. Here we go, rockets are solid. LG to follow up with, but Base is defensive rockets. The rockets from Russia, baby. Down goes Vengeurr.
It's a tricky position where you are at risk of being fragged by a ring out there, but there's no wall behind you. So the chance of a splash damage with the floor not being that easy to hit when he was kind of on the lower ground there too, it's kind of like an advantage and a disadvantage in that situation for Base. Those rockets were kind of hard to get hit by, and he used it perfectly. Now it's going to be a 2-to-1 to Base. This is Galena we're talking about. She can really set up shop if she has her totems on deck. And at this stage, here comes the Mega, 5 seconds away from spawning. Pika's going to come out to play just to try and bag some free damage and just to see where Base is going to be sitting down, really. He gets access to the Mega, and that shaves off a wonderful amount of cooldown for your totems. Let's never forget Galena's passive, picking up health at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely, Vengeurr. He's got the better mobility, but Base has managed to keep himself really healthy and cycle the major items. Vengeurr looking for a way in. Those rails, that's what you need to do. That's how you take on a defensive tank like Base. You lamp the shots, wiggle down his stack, and then by claiming a major item that belongs to the other player, you get yourself back in. Luckily for Vengeurr, he's got a lot of minutes left to work with, but still, all the pressure is on him. If he loses this map, he's out of the tournament.
But that's the scary thing. We've been spending most of the day, well, all of the weekend watching the upper bracket matches. This one's lower, elimination territory.
Yeah.
So at this point, Vengeurr, speaking of elimination, one rail will do it. Unfortunately, Base does miss the kill shot. And Vengeurr's going to have a little bit of time to just restack. And he optimizes putting himself in a position to get damage first. You know, rather than backing off and trying to find a position, I'm going to zip around the side of Banana, set up my rail angle, and then get damage that can somewhat shorten the benefit of some of your pickups.
Yeah.
More totems, one more of those, and we're in overstack territory.
Vengeurr, he needs to be mindful of that part of Base's playstyle. It's such a crucial component, rather, of the Galena playstyle. Nice little jump. Doesn't quite make it all the way, but it's so key that Vengeurr tries to take down those totems and prevents the overstack. But Base has been doing such a good job of basically making that part of the map all his. He's not letting Vengeurr anywhere near his precious stack of totems.
And he's fortifying this location at the same time, to the point where anytime Vengeurr would even think about trying to take out some totems, he kind of can't prioritize it, because there's always going to be a mega nearby. There's something more important that he has to put his attention to, because if he goes out of his way to take out the totems, then he's going to give up control elsewhere on the map. The problem is, the more totems that get planted down there, the more that becomes a crucial part of the level. And here we go. The mega's just about to spawn. Base just has a mega anyway. He's got 3 totems ready to rock. This is going to be a free frag, and this is scary for Vengeurr.
Yeah.
Very scary indeed. He's get hit by a spawn rail. There's going to be more coming out. In 20 seconds, he's going to have access to another totem, which should tie up nicely with the next mega that's going to spawn. This setup is something that Vengeurr must take down, and he has not much time, really, because if Base gets himself fortified, he's just running the control here. Vengeurr's consistently getting railed before he can fight, and then you have the overstacked totems. It is a nightmare situation. All right, here we go. Opportunity.
I love how absolutely Base these past few minutes his playstyle has been. This has been the exemplary Base. He hadn't moved from that side of the map in ages, Ketchup. He hadn't come onto the lightning gun in like 4 minutes, because he knows,
wow,
got LG ammo. Oh, with the 1 HP left, he clears it up. But Base, he just sat on the railgun side of the map. The farthest he went was basically Mega. He never went to LG, because he knows he's got an LG ammo box, and for the rest, he just got everything he needs right there.
As we can see, Vengeurr's been able to put himself in another position. Sees that Base is in that corner, so even if there was somewhat of an error of doubt that maybe there was totem there, there's always a theory, well, okay, why did he go around that corner? Why would he possibly go there?
Especially when Base keeps living, right? Base is just staying alive, even though Vengeurr is pelting him with these rails. He just needs to be mindful of the totems, Vengeurr. You gotta go clean them up. They're close to you. Let them live, man. No. Proving to be a difficult jump for these players today.
It has been. Shouts to 40 Lions, but as we can see now, more rocket damage coming through. He's really trying to do what he can, but to no avail. The health file combined with the mega is a nice little burst of health, and this is Vengeurr's opportunity. He's going to get some more information. He's got a wonderful stack, and with the heavy, there's a huge delay in between the two of them, actually, so it's going to be somewhat of a mission here as Vengeurr's going to push forward. Should really be his take there. Base hasn't got the stack, and it's quite risky, but Vengeurr wants the damage first. Wonderful choice to push him away before we take it. If we can damage him and then even it, but oh my word. Rocket and totem combined, the perfect angle as well. Base, the perfect play.
Vengeurr not happy about that one at all. Now he's lacking the weaponry. The rocket's gonna come out. Oh, he's gonna fly off with 8 points of health left on Base. Base almost joined him. The Peaker explosion nearly knocked him off the map as well.
Base, look at how we're all thinking.
Yep.
But unfortunately, the one person that's not going to be laughing there is Vengeurr. At this stage in the tournament, this stage of a map, you really hate to see it. It is the most unfortunate thing to just get knocked off like that, but honestly, he has an opportunity to come back here, but Base, once more, he's in the better position.
Yep.
And it is just the fortification he's had for the majority of this map. He's really just dug his heels into the dirt. And he's had the better stack. He's been hitting those really important rails. Vengeurr, I mean, he's been making this competitive. That's why there's only one frag in between, but It has been a really decent map for base so far. And you can look at the bottom, 2 totems down.
Yep, and base is again prioritizing this side of the map because he knows he doesn't need Mega. I've got one in my pocket if I can get my totems going, so all I need is that heavy. Here we go, pretty decent trap from Vengeurr. The moment he rounds the corner, he's ready for that burst of aggression, but he needs more than these reactionary plays. He needs to get himself at least one more frag in the board for the next 2 minutes, or otherwise it's going to be a done deal for the player from Italy.
And you know, it would be heartbreaking for him, but what a result for base it would be. Watch out there, Vengeurr. Watch out. Trying to really dodge as much as he can, base. If he moved an inch further to the left, that probably would have been more damage. The rail at the last second, though. Wow. What a shot.
And Vengeurr actually got a little lucky right there. That rocket from base bounced him so far to the right into the room that he had no route of escape other than that. So base passed up on a frag right there that could have potentially sealed the deal. Vengeurr, yes, he's continuing the onslaught, landing more and more rails. Another one for good measure, sure, why not?
But that's what Vengeurr's doing a great job of. Almost one of the most unique ring outs we would have seen, but no ring out necessary as base manages to bag another frag on the board. And he's timed the Mega perfectly. Vengeurr, he tried to run on so desperately there, but with just a spawn, he only had the starting machine gun. That's nowhere near enough to get damage.
Base looking so incredibly strong right now. And we've just a minute left to go, Vengeurr. He needs to put up a miracle right now. Can't take much more damage himself. Rocket being dodged by base, and here we go. Vengeurr knows that he has to take this engagement. 50 seconds left, he will disengage for the time being. Mega.
Thankfully, he is playing a Strogan Pika, so he can disengage a little bit faster than most, but even then, in the act of disengaging, he's being as aggressive as he can be. A nice little combo. You've pointed out his combos all day long. Rocket into rail. Base's stack just deleted like that. However, 7 seconds, he's going to have another totem ready to go. This fight will not be in the favor of Vengeurr once that totem comes into play, especially now that defensive rail is connected. Vengeurr, his tournament life relies on the next 20 seconds. He has to get a frag, and he has to get one right now. He's got the heavy. Can he do it?
Yeah, base setting up nicely. He's got the totems on all around the map to work with. Vengeurr, he is going to be able to close the distance. The LG frag trying to force out a respawn. He's got 10 seconds left to work with. Base, where does he spawn? Over at the Mega side. Here we go. Is it even going to try and pick it up? Vengeurr gets inside of him. The rail pushes him back, and that's going to spell GG as base moves ahead into the loser bracket finals.
That is a phenomenal win for base, and you can tell he feels really good about it. You saw it in his face the moment he got that map win. Vengeurr has been able to crack into a top 4. You know he wanted to get further than this, but top 4 that's what I call progress.
Absolutely, and look at base. If we're gonna talk about progress, top 3 at a major LAN in the Quake Pro League. Base, the man who has struggled with his LAN performances for so long, is finally making it up among the very top of the rankings. He's on the podium.
I mean, it's a far cry from the old LAN base. In Quake Champions even, he was going to LAN for a while and just was never able to reach that next level in terms of just overall performance. I mean, that ends today. If anything, today has just ascended base even further. Top 3 at a stage finals is a phenomenal result for any player.
Yeah, absolutely. You gotta feel for Vengeurr a little. But base, the defensive play was so strong, and base, he stuck to the basics that he knew work for him. I'm still so impressed by that performance. Half the map, catch up, half the map, base did not move from the railgun side of the map. He just completely ignored LG, Banana, everything around him, and just contented himself with of course, the totems that he has and the ammo pickups.
I mean, it's the benefit of a really smart champion pick. Base, if you're a highly defensive, he's the best defensive player really out there in Quake Pro League. This top 3 finish really proves that. Galena, one of the most defensive champions in the game. Why wouldn't you go with a champion that is just an extension of what is already a high skill set for you? But got to give props to Vengeurr. Looking at those replays, he made that map competitive all the way through. It was only the last second really where base really cemented himself, and he inched out that win by every stretch. Overall though, great result and a big congratulations.
Yeah, I mean, incredible stuff right over on Awoken as well, as you said, from Vengeurr. So tight, all the way down to the wire, and so many of those moments it looked like it could flip-flop back in favor of Vengeurr. But no, in the end, Base locks it down with a 2-0 and moves on, meaning that he is going to face off versus Razy. So he's slain one member of Maestro. Can he take down the next?
Well, that's the big question, of course. And I think another question that's going to be in a lot of people's mind is, would Base be a better, bigger threat to Rafa than Razy at this point? Because when we saw the winner brackets finals earlier, Rafa basically dismantled Razy. Like, left absolutely nothing standing of the man. So maybe Base, who is not a person that I think Rafa has a lot of experience dealing with, just because he doesn't usually make it to the top of the tournament, might just be, as you mentioned earlier, the black horse to take him by surprise.
We're left with unpredictability, aren't we? That really is the bottom line, that Razy was kind of really in a position where he kind of threw everything at Rafa to no avail. Base has a distinctly different style. That frag really was insane. Just it's the nature of Awoken. You love to see it and you hate to see it. It really depends on who you're rooting for and whether you're the one playing or not, I think, with ring outs like that. But I'm just overall really impressed with both of the players that we had here today. This may have been a decisive win for Base in overall score, but I really think that Vengeurr can leave this stage finals with his head held high. He always wants better, and you know he's gunning for that big win. But you said it right, the second he made the top 4, he comes out and comes up to you and he's like, top 4, man. Yeah. Top 4. Like, that was clearly a milestone that was in his head, and he matched that.
I'm very happy for him too.
No, yeah, you're right. He did make it into the top 4. Let's have a look at the bracket as well, and we can see where everyone else is situated currently, because now we're into crunch time, boys. 2 games to go before we have a new champion.
Yeah, and if you look at the very top, Rafa, Liquid Rafa, has not yet dropped a single map this entire tournament. We're not even talking about matches, we're talking about individual maps. And I was talking to him earlier backstage, and I asked him, Rafa, are you going to do this without losing a single map? And he looked at me and he said, last time I did that was in 2010. He hasn't won a tournament without dropping a map for a decade.
Years.
And I said, this is the time, man. This is when you can make it happen again. And he said he was going to try. So let's see how that pans out.
Well, I mean, the stage finals is all about just replaying history of old. We have to look at the stage 1 champion, Cooler. How long had it been since Cooler won a major tournament?
Oh,
and he destroyed everyone in that tournament. But I mean, Rafa has destroyed everyone today.
That's very
So it's very likely that history can repeat itself, man.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves though, boys. The final is still another best of 5 away. For now, Base of Black 100 will be going up against Razy of Maestro. It's going to be an incredible match. Stay tuned. When we're back after the break, we'll be kicking off with a best of 5.